are live on Facebook. Good evening. It is Thursday, the 25th of February. I am Ryan Wyant, the CEO of the LGBTQ Plus Real Estate Alliance, coming to you live from the Twin Cities of Minnesota. The last time we did this, I was unfortunately in a very rushed state heading to Anchorage, Alaska to celebrate my birthday. So I'm happy to be with you in person visually. And welcome this phenomenal panel that we have this evening. Tonight's discussion is critical not only to society as a whole, but to our community. The LGBTQ plus community deals with many different identities, and with those multiple identities come a lot of cultural and social challenges that, as a cisgender white male, I certainly can't speak for in person. This panel is aimed in part at diving into some of the unique experiences and walks of life that members of our community go through on a daily basis that others may not be able to replicate in their own life or ever really encounter. So with that, I invite you to pour a drink if that's your thing. Tune in, please engage if you'd like to ask questions. And I would like to hand things over to our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council Chair, Octavius Smiley Humphreys. Octavius?
Thank you so much, Ryan. And I want to humbly welcome everyone who is tuning in. I know it's late, especially if you're on the East Coast, but we always like to be cognizant of our members on all coasts. But thank you for joining this important conversation. While it's important, we're going to have fun. We're going to dive deep and have some very candid conversation because this month is technically Black History Month, but we know that the contributions of Blacks, African Americans, people of color, and all facets of diversity resonate not just in February or in their designated months, but throughout the year. And so we wanted to just invite everyone to have a conversation with us. As Ryan mentioned, I am the chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council with the Alliance. I also sit on the board, and I'm a real estate agent and a team leader here in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. It was very important to me as this organization got started to be a part of an organization that just didn't fight for LGBTQ plus, but every facet within that acronym, because as we've all seen in previous organizations and corporations and organizations in general, that we're placed under a broad umbrella and we have very different experiences, very different challenges and obstacles to overcome to quasi make it in this industry. And so I am humbled and thankful that Kimberly decided to head our PRISM Alliance resource group within our organization that will focus on educating, support, and furthering the efforts of people of color within our LGBTQ plus community. So I'll turn it over to Kimberly to just give us a brief overview of PRISM as it relates to the Alliance.
Well, thank you, Octavius. I am honored to be here. I take a great pride in the initiative of PRISM and supporting our members and more importantly, our community, and just being a voice and having continued education that will represent diversity for the most part in our diverse members and just all of our supportive members that want to be a part of such a new impact that we're a part of right now with the Alliance. So I'm looking forward to seeing a diverse group of people supporting such a great cause and making a very strong impact together with our members.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Ryan, if you don't mind touching a little bit just on where we are as an organization as it relates to diversity. I know we've made great strides with the amount of women we have a part of the Alliance, but I think we are all aware that there are some gaps, and I've made it my personal mission, and many of the diversity, equity, inclusion council members have made it our personal mission to further that challenge of increasing diversity.
Yeah, so I can tell you as an organization, we do not track race or national origin. I believe the information is collected as part of the membership application process, but along with a very long list of data metrics, there are certain things that we simply do not have the capability to report on right now. Those are mainly back end issues that we're constantly working on improving, growing pains, if you will. I am proud to say that as of this afternoon, when I checked, 46% of our organization was female identifying. That is out of just our paid members. So we are just shy of 1,000 members total right now. That's inclusive of about 100 consumer profiles. These profiles, so to speak, are folks that identify as consumers. However, they may have accidentally registered for the wrong account. That gives us about 900 active members that are either directory members or non-directory, meaning they have opted not to put their profile public and searchable in the directory. We actually, Octavius, it's funny, just this evening, we brought some reporting metrics online that do break down and allow me visibility into sexual orientation and how folks actually identify. I'm not comfortable just because I haven't really critically looked at that data releasing those numbers yet, but it's impressive. I will say that there is a staggering number of allies who have joined this alliance. And by staggering, it's the data that I looked at this evening, it has the ally count at about 123 individuals. So out of 1,000 members, to be that fortunate to have that many folks that identify as allies to champion our causes with us, I'm very grateful. Specific to deeper data, Octavius, again, I'm not sure what I'm comfortable releasing right now just because I haven't had a great deal of time to go through the numbers myself with a critical eye.
No, and I totally understand that, Ryan. And what the personal charge that I have taken on and that the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council has taken on is making sure that this organization is not a traditional LGBTQ organization. And that is no disrespect to all of the organizations that have paved a way to allow us to do what we do. But we know that our efforts can reach further and be broader. And as a Black African-American gay male, it was important to me to be able to be a part of an organization that saw me, that heard me, that allowed my voice to be represented in everything that we do. And so we want to make sure that we continue that effort. And so please understand, I am excited and proud and humbled to be the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Chair and to be able to have this conversation. With that being said, we want to just dive in and start having a very candid conversation about our experiences. And we have 5 wonderful people to chat with. You guys have already gotten to know me. I'd like Kimberly to introduce herself, where you're from, your team, what do you do?
Absolutely. Well, as you know, I am Kimberly Davis, and we are with the under the umbrella of Keller Williams Realty out of Texas and Plano, Texas proper. We have a team of about 12 of us, and I've been in the business for 20 years and had a team now for about 11 years. And you know, at the end of the day, I have a relationship of 20 years with my partner. We have a very active, bold, loving 9-year-old kiddo that has been a part of our lives for 9 years, that's changing the world and being very proud of his 2 moms. So I represent that at a high level and looking forward to seeing my son join me in the mission of change. So I'm happy to be here, and I look forward to making an impact with families and individuals that have children as well here in our organization.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And as we may have stated earlier, Kimberly leads PRISM, which is our People of Color Alliance Resource Group. And I want to make the distinguish or the separation that it's not just about our members that are people of color, but also those who feel like there may be a gap, a lack of understanding, or just folks who want to gain more knowledge in how to better serve their clients and their customers. PRISM is an inclusive group for all of those who understand that we are better together, and understanding all the facets of diversity and our communities will better help us in our business and support our customers. So thank you so much, Kimberly. Cassandra, I love you. Please introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
Thank you. I'm Cassandra Alicea. I am from San Antonio, Texas, born and raised, a realtor with Coldwell Banker, D.N. Harper Realtors. I'm in my third year of real estate, so fairly new, but Texas growth is insane, so I've learned a lot. I'm sure there will be more to come. I have only been in the game a few years, and look forward to growing with your organization as well. Aside from this, I do own I founded a nonprofit for transgender rights here in Texas, and that was just founded last June. So with the pandemic and the slowing or the lack of grants available, we've gotten off to a slower start, but I'm very optimistic on how much we can grow. So that kind of falls in line with what we do here. So it's really exciting to be a part of everything. And I hope that maybe we can align both one day. And aside from that, I have two spoiled fur babies. So they run my life, and they're running around down here at the bottom.
Well, again, thank you so much, Cassandra, for being a part of this. Yeah. I know it's not always easy being the face, because to me, you are, at least in my eyes, the face of our organization as it relates to transgender people, and you impress me, and I'm enamored by you. So I thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you always complimenting, and I appreciate the opportunity, because it is important. I don't mind being the face of the trans community in real estate and overall on this platform. So I take it with great responsibility and honor. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, another person I'm enamored with, but only because he has a full head of hair and I have none whatsoever. Tagasi Peko, please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tongasi Peko. I am based out of Bainbridge Island, Washington, which is just outside Seattle. I work in real estate and construction. So I'm a realtor and then also a project engineer. So my background is also from military. I was a submarine officer stationed out here. And yeah, I've had some pretty good, interesting experiences since growing up and going through everything. So I'm excited for this panel. It'll be fun.
Well, thank you, Tagasi. He's normally laid back because I've chastised him on making me feel inferior because he's so engineer, military, realtor, construction. I'm tired. No, thank you for joining us. And if you guys have not had the opportunity to chat with Siobhan, it only takes a second to understand how phenomenal she is and how important and just necessary the work that NAFA does. So Siobhan, could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Octavius. And I'm so excited to be on this panel, especially since it's so Texas strong. I'm Siobhan Ferguson. I work with the National Fair Housing Alliance. We are based in DC, but I do, for this panel, claim Texas. That's where I was raised. I have been working in fair housing, working to eliminate and investigate discrimination in housing for about 8 to 9 years now. I've been with NAFA, doing it at the national level for about 6 years, going on 7, and am really, to Octavius's point, am equally finding it important that we are able to make sure that people aren't discriminated in the LGBTQ community, but also making sure that we don't ignore how people of color, and specifically Black and Brown folks, are experience discrimination at a higher rate within our community, and to make sure that conversation is never lost. So I'm really excited to be on this panel with y'all.
Thank you so much, Siobhan. And so I want to just jump right into it. And I'll start off by saying I got my license in North Carolina after a difficult time in real estate when the market crashed in Atlanta in 2009. And being new to North Carolina, one of my biggest concerns was being a Black gay male who was going to be proud of who I am, trying to build a business in what is usually perceived as a very traditional, more conservative, cisgender real estate industry. And so I wonder if you all had concerns or reservations about being a person of color and how successful you would be in the real estate industry.
I would say I wasn't too worried, mainly because I was in the military, and it's not the most open environment for somebody who's of the LGBTQ community. And being on submarines, a majority of the individuals were Caucasian. So I was one of a handful of minorities on my submarine, and only one within my officer wardroom. So it's definitely something that I kind of worked through the entire time I was in the military. And when I came out and to do real estate, it was more of like a free environment that I was kind of excited to step into.
Awesome.
I would definitely say that here in Texas, coming out of Plano, when I got my license in around 2000, I think it was like December 1999 actually. And in our office of like 300 agents, there were no African Americans. There was really maybe I think I was the first minority in that office, and also very concerned about being openly gay. And what I decided was, it took me probably 3 years before I was willing to step out of my shell. And I had two things that were, challenges for me. A, being Black in that community, and then B, being a lesbian and being, in a relationship at that time. And so what I decided that I had to do is to find people that looked like me and made me feel a little bit more confident. So as I continued to really get more mentors, and I never did find a gay mentor in real estate, but I did find an African American up north that I started modeling, and that really helped me to see that I was capable of achieving and producing the business that was needed to help me with my vision. But I definitely have to say that, now I look back, 20 years later, and see the African Americans and the minorities in our office of maybe 385 agents now, and we probably have about 10%, and it just makes an impact. And I regretfully believe that if I would have been more bold, I believe that I could have grown through the challenges faster. So I robbed myself. So knowing that, it was good it's just good to see models, no matter what. So it's now me being exposed and making sure I'm always there to be present for others, to see, makes an impact and creates growth in itself. So that was my takeaway in my 20 years when I reflect back on being bold and accepting me for who I was. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Cassandra, listen, I'm going to pick on you a little bit because you have stepped out and done what most probably wouldn't even venture to do. So tell us about your experience and what you overcome.
Yeah, so going into it, race was a bit of my concern. People probably would think that it wouldn't be, excuse me, being that I'm in South Central Texas in San Antonio, we have an enormous Hispanic population here. But the perception of the real estate industry was not maybe flooded with Latin or people of color or anybody that weren't essentially cis white individuals. So that definitely was on my mind. Of course, the trans thing as well. So it was kind of a double worry that I had going into it. But just stepping into it, of course, you know, I have a good friend who kind of helped bring me onto the brokerage I'm with. Once I was in the industry, I realized that, yes, there was that worry and there are those people that had judgment, but they really weren't for me or part of my circle. So it really hasn't been too much of an issue for me. After a very, very short time of being licensed and working, I just kind of took it on as everything else in my life, that I'm just gonna do me, because if I just am authentic to myself and not worry about everything else, it'll work. And you know, there have been some issues, but it's gone for the most part well.
Absolutely. And what I'm so glad you said it, which is we've all been through the training, no matter if we're with a bigger firm or smaller firm or what facet of real estate we're in, we hear about being your authentic self and how that will further your business. And then you get licensed, right? And then you join a firm and then you see that, should I? And so I applaud you and everyone else on this panel, because it is a challenge being your authentic self when the majority of the successful people that you see around you do not look like you and that are not LGBTQ. So you're like, can I can I actually be myself? So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I have a question for Cassandra.
Yeah,
sure.
I have a question. I'm curious, do you find that the challenges that you mentioned come from the professionals within the real estate industry that you work with, or do you believe that it comes from like the consumer side of the people that you're helping?
For me, particularly, it's more from people in the industry, because I am aligned with them more so than consumers that don't necessarily share the same beliefs as me or think that even this is right. So of course my brokerage is quite large. We have many offices. So when it comes to company events, there are many people who probably think that I shouldn't be there. And sometimes, very rarely, that's noticeable, but for the most part, including my broker, everyone's extremely friendly. But I would have to say that comes mostly from people in the industry, more so, well, not, I would say more so people from my company, but you know, there have been some issues with race and or gender when it comes to other realtors. But you know, the number of occurrences in that situation versus the great ones are very minuscule. And when it comes to the consumer, usually, of course, if someone wants to work with me, they are 100% in. So I don't necessarily come in contact with anyone like that. There are those there. I do live in Texas, you know.
Yeah.
I love it here. I love it. I love my home. You know, but there's all kinds everywhere.
Yeah. I think that was a great question, and it's actually a great segue. But before we go there, I be remiss if we don't get Siobhan's, because you get to hear the consumer side, right? NAFA gets to hear the complaints, the discrimination. Is there any trend that you're seeing from a people of color standpoint as it relates to the LGBTQ plus community and finding equitable housing in our community?
Yeah, well, I would say that the biggest trend that I see, or that I've noticed, and I think I mentioned it during the first Prism event that Kimberly and you hosted a few weeks ago, is that discrimination complaints that we receive, that I have seen, that are being reported, are coming mostly from white people, and that we have to think about why that is. We have to figure out, is it because, when we're marketing LGBTQ rights, who is that being marketed to? Are there, how are we, recently I received a complaint, and the person who was referred to me by their loan officer and real estate agent, fortunately. And that individual, those individuals were white. And, when we think about how just generally real estate market is dependent on relationships, how you don't know what you don't know, and the people who have
Right.
that information, that knowledge, and that power tend to be people who are part or at the core of power, and that core of power is typically white. And that may be in it, I'm not really sure. So, but what we do know is that we need to make sure that people of color know that they also, if they experience housing discrimination, have rights. But I think also on the flip side being that, as someone who's Black and who is Mexican, who's also gay, you don't know why someone's experience is treating you differently. But what we do know is that from our history and our experience, that the color of my skin tends to outweigh some other issues, as I think Cassandra pointed out recently, in her conversation. So I would say that's the most concerning, because that makes people believe that LGBTQ rights and LGBTQ issues and discrimination is a white issue, and it's not only.
I'm so glad you brought that up, and please understand, folks, that this is not a point fingers at white folks conversation, right? But we also have to understand is that certain demographics are more privy to the avenues to share about their discrimination, to make complaints. It wasn't until my second or third year into real estate that I knew that there was an avenue to make complaints, right? And so I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I definitely can say that Black and African American communities, we're not necessarily pushing the envelope and really standing up for our LGBTQ plus community. You know what I mean? Because we're dealing with our own discrimination and redlining and all this. So, and that's why these conversations are important, right? Because everyone deserves fair housing, whether that's leasing, buying, selling. Those that are housing compromised, because make no mistake, while we are geared towards real estate, we understand that our community is affected by housing on every single level, right? And that's what we're trying to change here. Sorry for my soapbox, just had to put that out there.
I think an important thing to recognize here is for people to feel comfortable and empowered to stand up. Most of the time, it's because they have a very strong support system. They're backed by people that care about them, that are willing to go to bat for them and with them if necessary. And it's also important to realize not everybody has that. And
Absolutely.
What avenue do those individuals have? Because if there is something that they're experiencing, they also have to operate within that environment, as a professional, and still interact with these people that they may be experiencing issues from.
Well stated, Tagasi. And you got beautiful hair. Now I'm going to throw that out. And on anytime Tagasi and I are in the same room, I'm going to talk about his hair because I'm jealous.
Move your head the next time you appear next month.
But one of the things I wanted to kind of to talk about is success, right? Because we all got into this business to achieve some level of success. And being in the Triangle area of North Carolina, if you talk about like the top producers, the prominent teams, brokerage firms in the area, you'll hear the same names. And if you saw a picture of them, they don't look like me. So what has there been a challenge to become successful in your prospective markets? Being that two of you are in Texas, where you would think there would definitely be a challenge, but I'd love to hear, like, did you feel like there was a concerted effort where you had to be better than, you had to do more than what was probably expected out of your counterparts?
If you don't mind, Kimberly, I can go first.
Absolutely.
To be 100% honest, I'm, as time goes on, realizing that there is a difference. To be transparent, I grew up in an area that was predominantly white, and I've never had a problem. I've never had issues until going into the real estate market. I viewed or experienced differences. So there have been times where maybe I do have to put a little extra effort into it or prove myself a little more than my counterpart would have to. Not all the time, but there is that. I think any person of color, and then when you layer it on top of the LGBT community, that we just kind of have to prove ourselves a little more. Not necessarily with our clients always, because usually our clients are people who definitely want to work with us, but just to prove our worth and our strength and our success, and to become successful with in the eyes of our peers. So that definitely is an extra layer, which of course is the case with anyone in our situation in any industry, but definitely in the South Texas real estate market, that is an issue. And I can imagine that probably is the case for you, Kimberly, if not even more so, because I'm familiar with Plano, and and I'm sure there are many challenges that you have to overcome on a regular basis.
Right. No, I definitely think that as an individual agent, from sponsorship that most people are able to receive, that was always a challenge, to be able to have partnerships and to get those people to support you fully in business compared to the competition. And honestly, what I had to really realize is that it was starting to get to my mindset, and I started creating this disempowering belief and limited belief that that was the way that it was. So as I continued to let go of that type of resistance, I've always had to just push through, right? Just like the shoulders I'm on of my grandparents, right? Always push through, because was there some truth to it? Yes, but what you focus on, you're going to continue to get, right? Mm-hmm. So it toughened me, and it created me to refuse not to grow, and to refuse not to have one of the first Black teams. And I'm in Collin County, which is, technically the second wealthiest county in the state of Texas. And so it's very interesting here, right, with the demographic and the incomes and the average income household. So being able to be a Black, female starting a team and having, a diverse team, and versus it being an all Black team was always, it's always interesting, because whenever I would ask for referrals, even my team, it was always presumed that they need to be Black. Right. And I am just a person of just such a multiple color, right? Just love culture altogether. And so I would always get offended that I love my Black people, obviously, but it's like, okay, because I'm Black, I have to have only Black recruits. So, but I also believe that due to lack of exposure, people are also intimidated to apply for a successful team. Because here to this day, the average team still doesn't produce as much business as I've been blessed enough to be able to have and create. And they still are, it's just lack of exposure. It's just like Cassandra's situation in that, applying because she's different and people don't want to apply to be with her because they've never been friends with someone like her. And so that's
Right.
what I had to really work on, being intentional and breaking through. And as I continue to get more and more successful, then vendors came to me, right? And then I continue to use diversity and continue to grow my diversity and my team with vendor services. And so, but it's very interesting because I could have let it limit me. And I'm just thankful I had to just take that responsibility and realize that was a problem that I could really help myself with versus it being a lifetime circumstance. I refuse to let it limit me and keep me buried, right? So, but overall, it definitely exists. I have had, many times where I remember buying my first car, that was like a little luxury car or something 5 or 6 years ago. And I was profiled by a Plano police officer who came to my office twice and wanting to see my ID, right? And then that was I think our office it was an aha for those people in our office because the receptionist was like, why is this cop here looking for you, asking for who drives that kind of car outside? And I was like, Miss Debbie, I'm selling a house. You deal with it. Because that's the second time he was here 2 weeks ago and he followed me. You deal with it. Get your cousin. So overall, it was like, it was just like so irritating. And again, emotional intensity, learning to just embrace change and ignorance and just, when they come to find out this guy was related to someone in our office, but he was honestly wanting to find, I think it was just profiling, right? And
Right.
so, but it happened. And again, I had to shift my way of thinking because at the end, I could allow that to limit my life or change my life and continue to grow others and grow myself. And that's the choice I made, right? So, but Texas is it's interesting, and it's often that it continues. But now, since the past year, it's definitely improving. I got to say, I'm going to focus on the positive of it. But I'm glad to be a part of such a conversation tonight to continue to, make sure that I am the change because I think that that's the face that we have to be because I think in our own world of being even gay, going to the gay clubs and I still see where we're segregated in our own
Right.
world. So that was what was really shocking to me as I go to the Dallas clubs and you see where you have the blacks over here and the Hispanics over here. So we're just as guilty.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of work to do just within our community outside of real estate, right?
Right.
Like that's prevalent. But I also want to share, and this may ruffle some feathers, I am partly successful because of cisgender white folks loving on me. And I'm just going to put it out there. Like I reached out, and this is Black History Month, right? We're going to have a real conversation. I tried to connect with my cisgender straight community and I didn't feel a part of, right? But my mentor is a white lady named Lynette Mittendorf. And if that doesn't tell you who Lynette is, you understand, right? And so I owe my insurance guy, my go-to insurance guy, my loan officer, my inspector, he's Hispanic, not gonna lie, but like most of my vendors are actually cisgender white folks. And it's not because I feel like people are more comfortable with them, but I built my business on people who were comfortable with me.
Mm-hmm.
That was the foundation of how I built my team and what I was going to do. I didn't care who was comfortable with you. You have to be comfortable with the way, because we know as real estate agents, at least, it starts with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of our referrals, all of our business goes out. There's very little coming in. So this is not some gripe session that, it's no one loves us. Like, don't get me wrong. I fucking, excuse my language. It's an open conversation. That's why maybe Ryan is second guessing why he made me the diversity, equity, inclusion chair. But like, I'm a real guy, and that's the conversation. There are fantastic cisgender white people, and there are also people of color in our communities that are making it also difficult. And I'm going to state the obvious every time.
Mhm.
I just want that to be known. But to turn it back positive, I wanna have a conversation about, like, one, we're all a part of the Alliance, right? And we joined this organization for a reason. And so I want to talk about, like, what can we be doing as an organization to further the advancement of people in color in our industry, and also making sure that we live by our motto and our vision of fair housing for all. So I know that's a lot. Who wants to tackle that?
I'd like to say a little something on that, if possible. It came to mind when Kimberly was speaking, and then when you kind of brought it, kind of tied that in as well. I realized as Kimberly was speaking that maybe within our own communities of race, we have certain prejudices that maybe turn people like us away from us. And as you were speaking to your circle or your group, as far as your professional people go, they may not be of African American descent. And I think sometimes we need to focus, or not something, but maybe we have to find a way to let people know, like for instance, myself, of the Latin community, that we have to work with each other instead of against each other. I know that is a bit of a problem here, and just interracial prejudices. And then on top of that, layered with the race thing, the LGBT community. So maybe finding a way of highlighting the positives while being inclusive of everyone else within our own community is a great way to move forward. Now, the plan for that, or the pathway for that, that's, you know, another that's another situation. But I think that's a big focus, because maybe what came to mind was maybe the people who are drawn to you are or of white or Latin descent, because they aren't as intimidated or have the same opinions as people of your own race, whereas I experience the same thing as well. And that's unfortunate, but maybe we have to figure out or try to work towards breaking that barrier as well. Because I know I've gotten a little bit of discrimination from other cisgender Latin realtors or people in the industry, to where, you know, I maybe don't work with them as well as I work with others because of whatever their opinion may be.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think, you know, Octavius and Sandra, I think you guys both spoke to what I was already thinking about. Like, a piece of this is a whole mentorship piece, right? A piece of this is that, you know, I think Octavius hit the nail on the head. Black and brown people can't solve racism. Racism is solved. We can't change the behaviors of white people, right? It's on them. And so anything that we can do as an alliance to make sure that we are, one, supporting each other, you know, non-white people, Black and brown people are supporting one another, and making sure that, you know, we are amplifying the great work that people are doing, so that people recognize that you know, Kimberly is successful in this way, this is her strength, Octavius is successful in this way, this is his strength. And that is amplified in a way that's not just to Black and brown people, but to anybody, to everybody. And that we, you know, that we continue to use our voices. And I think Octavius started off the conversation with Ryan very directly. Like, we need to make sure that we are doing that we are committed to our work. And that's what we have to keep doing. You know, if we are not recognizing that, you know, that we are highlighting and showing the accomplishments of mostly cisgender white men, and we're not seeing other people represented, then we need to make sure that we speak that truth, that we have those hard and difficult conversations. That's how you make change, by not letting up and keeping our voices strong for those who can't speak out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Siobhan, for sharing that. And that was the whole purpose around PRISM and all of our Alliance resource groups, right? I've worked in very large organizations before real estate, and typically you think, let's not ruffle any feathers, let's not put a target on my back, let's not speak out, especially I'm one of the only few Black persons, Black, Hispanic, Asians, whatever. So you kind of tuck your tail in, you do your job, and that's it. But I definitely want PRISM and the Veterans Resource Group and the Women's Group and any other person actually that feel like they're part of a underserved, marginalized community within this group. If you have an opinion, if we're not doing something right, because I can tell you, I don't have all the answers. And I have a diversity, equity, and inclusion background, and I am still learning. If you have a question, a concern, advice for us, an opinion, please at least forward them to me. Because I want to hear from you. I love learning, and I know that sounds cliche. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council, as I know, the 5 folks on this panel sit on that council, and they're all engaged in learning and growing, because we don't know it all. I'm going to pick on Siobhan. She probably knows a little more than us because she hears from everyone. But give us a chance. Give each other a chance, not just as an organization, but as brothers and sisters and everything under that umbrella within this organization, because we need each other. I solely believe in that we need each other, gay, straight, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, transgender, queer. Here I go again. I don't give a shit. We need each other, because I'm a people lover. And I know that at the heart of this organization and the folks on this panel and our members, that we all want to see our communities win as it relates to housing, and broader than that. So with that, we have about 8 minutes. I'll open it up to questions. I think you may be able to type them into chat. Ryan, is that correct?
Yeah, there's a couple folks who have typed questions, and I suppose I can play the role of the question asker. So Octavius, you can weigh in as well. One question is, when white cis men like us are talking within the industry, what can we do to showcase diversity within diversity?
So is that a question of a white cis gay male feeling that they're diverse, or is that a white gay male saying, how do we showcase the other facets of diversity?
I can tell you,
and you didn't ask the question, so
yeah,
you probably
the individual asking the question is does identify as an ally. So he is a straight white cis man, and he's been in the industry for a very long time, and he's been in roles of great opportunity. So I would imagine what he's driving at is, how can he use his privilege in those positions to help elevate folks, not only within the LGBTQIA community, but the intersectionality within our community. How does he even start to know where to begin with that?
So
I believe that, one thing that they can do is by taking minorities with you, right? If there is, an educational platform and you can mentor a younger person that may be new in the business, or take them to a board meeting so that they can see how our board meeting has been operated, and leadership, take them and create exposure, bring them to the table so they can learn something that they may not have learned before, models and processes and systems. I think that that's one thing that we can do, is take the time to help, mentees, and making sure we're there for people would be one thing that they can do to make a change. Would be my answer to that.
I think some sort of also like a mentor mentee program where you kind of try and pair people up that are very different, and see how they come back from different backgrounds would be great too, to help expose to different lifestyles. And just making people aware that there's different people out there that come from different backgrounds, that don't identify the same way that they do, is just It's all important. And I think another thing is just like highlighting the successes of people that are diverse. And sometimes they don't get recognized as much, but it's the same, you know? It's really important to kind of seek those out and bring them to light so that people that maybe are cis white males recognize, oh, that's possible that somebody like that can do that. But then on the same token, for individuals that identify with that person are like, oh, wow, I can be that, you know?
Absolutely. And I'll say two things. One, if there's anyone who leads a team, a firm, a brokerage, I'm sure you tout diversity. Look around your firm. Look around your team. Are you really diverse? Are you really practicing that preach? And this is not an attack or insult on you, but there's a difference between believing in diversity and loving diversity and actually being a part of change, right? So I'll charge you with that. And then the second, and this is just for any of our cisgender folks out there, and I'm going to say it because most people won't. Please do not tell people about your gay friend, cousin, sister, brother. I have a this and a black friend, and stop. Just if you've ever had a story where you were in a conversation and you got uncomfortable and your first reaction was to tell people how your best friend is gay or black, or your best friend is transgender and Hispanic, or your best friend or your cousin, or don't do that. Just listen. Just own it. Sit back and listen, because that doesn't give us a hug that you know someone that is gay or black or transgender.
And you don't need to act different either. Like, I don't know if any of you have experienced where somebody like changes the way they act because you're
yes,
like
girl,
a person
we all
of
know
color.
that,
Yeah, or because you're LGBTQ. It's like, you just talk to us like you would anybody else.
Absolutely. Ryan, is there another question? Sorry.
I'm going to set you up to answer a question that I know the answer to, but I think it's important to address. As I said earlier, I'm in the Twin Cities. In the wake of the lynching of George Floyd, a lot of my friends who are people of color found themselves in a situation where the question from white folks was, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Can you tell us about what you're going through right now? I would challenge, I've heard that answer from many, many different points of view and many different people of color's perspectives. I would encourage you all to be real about what it's like getting that question, and what your response to an individual asking that question would look like.
Absolutely. And on the flip side of that, Ryan, I'm glad you brought that up. I want to hear how uncomfortable it is for you. Like, what makes you uncomfortable? What is your reservation? Is it when you hear that someone is called a racist, or that someone was discriminated against? Like, I know I'm going to put it out there. I know I can be a black, mad gay man, right? But that's my experience. But I also want to hear your experience, right? And so if we can listen to each other and understand that, like, there is a bridge, right? There's a intersection. That's the new buzzword, right? For the past couple of weeks. There is an intersection in our lives. And so I know that I make people uncomfortable. So I can't put that to the side and be like, you shouldn't be uncomfortable. But I want to also understand why you're uncomfortable, because it might be because my size or my demeanor or the way that I speak. But then you get to know me and understand that you came from a rougher background than me, and I'm actually scared of you. You know what I mean? And so we don't realize that, right? And those are the conversations that we need to be able to have openly. And those are the conversations. And that's why This is how I run my team. I'm very relaxed. I'm very candid. I'm very honest. And that's how we have built the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council and built the alliance. Because this is not some table talk that's going to be pushed to the side. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is going to be at the forefront of what the alliance does. And that was my charge. That was Ryan's charge, and all the board members of this organization. And so, I want to make sure that people on this call understand that this is not just Black History Month. Yes, we care, but as you see the statement that I helped craft, that Black History Month is not a month. And when we get to Hispanic Heritage Month or Asian Heritage Month or any of the other months or days, it's not about months or days. It's about understanding that the contributions of this country are a mosaic of everyone who lives here, everyone who will come here in the future. And if we don't recognize that, we're doing ourselves a disservice. Sorry, again, soapbox, sorry.
Can
So
I
we're
answer a question before he talks about what makes him uncomfortable? I will say that last summer, if a person had not spoken to me in a year or longer and randomly texted me or Facebook messaged me privately to ask me how I was doing, they were ignored. That is just so, if you didn't care about about us up until that moment when it became trendy, and because he probably don't have another Black or brown person to connect with, that means that you need to do some work, and I am not here to do that work for you. Not to say that we won't be here for you once you've done the work, but connecting with somebody at a moment when it is trending and because it makes you feel good is actually just reminds us about how you didn't care up until that moment. So that's what I have to say about that.
And I'll say, and I'm sorry again, I'll say that they probably did. They just didn't know how to say it or do it. But and again, I'm a very candid guy. I struggle when I see 100 thousands of posts because I have thousands of friends. That's not a claim to fame. That's actually ridiculous. I probably should scale that down. But when you see post after post about how the insurrection on the Capitol was disgusting, but you also saw the same folks say, well, wait, let's hear what happened with the George Floyd thing. You start to feel like, what's really important? Is it America or is it me? Am I not America, right? Am I not as important as the symbolic Capitol Hill? And that's the struggle. And I just want to be real with everyone who is watching or listening in, because I'm fighting for LGBTQ plus rights every day. I'm fighting for humane rights and energy and all of that. And so I don't want to hear anymore that, well, I can care about a bunch of things. So just because I didn't make a post about George Floyd or make a post about this, that doesn't mean I care. Social media literally says, this is what you care about. I'm just going to put it out there. That's the way we see it. You get to literally broadcast what's important to you. So if you are silent about George Floyd or discrimination and racism when it comes to people of color, but you're vocal about only LGBTQ rights, that says that you're linear focused and I don't matter to you. Any other questions?
I like the head bow at the end. It's like, I'm done.
I think that David Sorority is asking a really powerful question. You guys, are we able to answer some of that?
Yeah. I think Kim, I would like to end on that in light of time. I know that we're about 5 minutes over what we had committed to. Obviously, this conversation is a living, breathing conversation with living, breathing people, and this conversation will continue. The Alliance is ecstatic to have leaders such as yourselves at the helm steering these conversations, and we look forward to, as the months and quarters continue, more and more of these dialogues taking place, God willing, sooner than later in person. I will, obviously this is not about me, but I just, Octavius, were you asking me that question, or was that hypothetical what makes me uncomfortable?
No. It was just a hypothetical conversation, question for people to think about.
Yeah.
And to, I know it's over time and people want to drop off. I invite them to, and normally, as you guys have seen before, I will drop off in a minute, especially when it comes to family and responsibilities. But I think David Cerruti asked a very important question for those who stay on. When Whites has been like, we are talking with the industry, what can we do to showcase diversity? We kind of address that, but representing your gender identity and sexual orientation, if each of you could make a change in real estate industry, what it would be. And because I wanted to read that question aloud, I'll address that question. The change that I would like to make is today is having this conversation, is no longer telling myself that I'm a Black gay male and so I shouldn't be on the board of an organization and I shouldn't lead their diversity, equity, and inclusion council, and understanding that if I want to see change, as opposed to looking for someone else to stand up and be that change, I can do it. I sit back and say, well, I'm not necessarily the best speaker, or I don't have the formal, or the corporate training, but that's what it takes. So what I would change is the fear in our industry for people who look like the people on this council to stand up in their firms, in their communities and organizations and saying, I'm the only Black person here. I'm the only Hispanic person here. I'm the only LGBTQ plus person here. And while we want to sell real estate, and whether you live in California, Los Angeles, Seattle, Sacramento, Raleigh, Durham, there are people outside of what real estate says is going to be our bread and butter. We got in this industry to help people. I do that every day in my job, and I'm damn going to do it here at the Alliance. And that sounds like a commercial, but if you know me, I am probably fighting back tears trying to get that out because it's so imperative to me.
Thank you for your candor. Kim Davis, same question.
Very quickly, I believe that what makes change is freedom, and freedom is wealth building. And I believe that being an example in our community to get people to the table to focus on truly not just home ownership, but because right now affordability is a factor, right? So it's deeper than that. So I'm like Octavius in that we have to be present, we have to help people get their credit repair done so that they can enter the market and to be a part of just investing into freedom. And I think that that's capital. So being a part of education in your community, and if whether you're white, Black, green, or blue, the fact of the matter is that we all deserve to have wealth building, and real estate gives us the most amount of wealth building that we can, see in many different facets in our world. So to me, that freedom it in the Black community, and I see the housing shortage and who's represented as minorities owning homes, freedom, legacy wealth building. So helping people understand how to buy a home and how to invest in real estate with legacy wealth building.
Well said. Togasi, same question to you.
I think Kimberly and Octavius really said it. It's just important for you to stay true to who you are If you don't feel like you're supported, there's resources out there. If you hit a roadblock, there's always a solution. Reach out to somebody. I'm sure somebody's been through something similar. They can help you based off their experiences. And for those people that are in those positions that are able to give a voice to underrepresented people, do so. I mean, when you're in positions like that, you're a leader. And part of being a leader is recognizing what your community truly looks like every day, not just the people you surround yourself with, and giving them a voice so that everybody's represented.
Thank you. Cassandra, same skin, same shoes. What would you change in the industry?
I think my biggest focus would be, of course, a little bit more personal, would be would be to normalize, for lack of a better term, the presence of the transgender community within the real estate world. I think the optics of that now is sometimes a bit shocking to people who aren't used to it. And I'd like to just make that a little bit more normal, if you will, because we clearly don't have a large presence in the real estate community or in many professional arenas. So I'd like to just help be a small part of making that just normal. And I know there isn't really a true definition there, what is normal, you know, but for a broad sense, just to normalize it. Hopefully I can be a part of that.
Oh,
You are.
You are part of it, sister.
And
Yeah.
finally, if there's one person who has a seat to truly enact change in their daily work, Siobhan Ferguson, you've seen a lot. You have a lot to say. I'd like to hear some of it.
Brian. Well, to quote great civil rights activist Wade Henderson, you know, we all walk through doors that we did not open, and we all walk on floors that we never scrubbed. We are all here because of the work of the civil rights work that allows us to, you know, be able to now have jobs in the housing industry when it wasn't always the case that any of us could because of the discrimination that was lawful. And so we should, you know, anyone who's in the real estate industry, you know, and especially people part of the Alliance, should take on that torch and make sure that we continue to push and make sure that there are federal protections for people of the LGBT communities, and make sure that it is finally on the books that people cannot be treated differently because of their sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Today, the Equality Act has passed in the House, and we need to make sure that it passes in the Senate. And we need to make sure if there are any other, you know, if you're a real estate agent and you work in the real estate industry, if you notice that there is something that is a barrier to our community that we have not recognized, like something as simple as, you know, a buyer's agreement being forced to include have the person identify as being married, and that potentially being, you know, a way that people, you know, within our community being discriminated against. If you see that, you know, do what you can to make sure that that policy is changed. We have to do the work so that those after us can experience freedoms we are still working towards.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank you all, obviously, before I throw it back to Octavius to close it out. I want to re-emphasize that the Alliance currently is and will remain a place where you can genuinely be your authentic selves and bring your authentic selves to the table. And we expect you to, frankly. Without difference of opinion, without diversity of thought, we're not going to move the needle at all. So thank you all for your candor in this conversation. Octavius, would you close us out?
Absolutely. And if you don't believe Ryan, you have literally just witnessed me probably from a corporate level. People like, get them out of here. But that's who I am, and that's who all of you should be. And I know it's not always easy. It wasn't easy for me, and I take that charge. Understand, if you want to be a part of PRISM, again, it is not only for people who identify as Black, white, Hispanic, all of the facets of diversity. If you want to be a part of change and educating yourself so you can better represent your communities, your consumers, and join PRISM. We also have the Veterans Network. If you want to learn more about serving our military and retirees and veterans, Tagasi is the chair of the Veterans Network. We also are launching the Women's Network with a wonderful conversation with the CEO of Exit Realty on March 8th. So there are a lot of fantastic things happening within the Alliance as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Please be a part of it. If you have suggestions, questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me directly on the website, or Kimberly, or Tagasi, or Cassandra, or Siobhan. We're all here, and I need to shut up because it's late and it's Thursday. Thank you for being here. We love you.